We continue with our end-of-year special reports with a focus on infrastructure tonight. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu assumed office in 2023 with bold infrastructure promises spanning power, transport, housing, and industrial growth. 2 years on, some projects are visible on the ground, while others remain slow or controversial, raising concerns among citizens over delivery. Our correspondent Joshua Imaraye in this special end-of-year report examines the gains and the gaps.
President Bola Tinubu came into office in 2023 with an ambitious infrastructure agenda, from positioning Nigeria as a manufacturing hub to improving power supply, transport, and public utilities. Expectations were high. While government spending on road infrastructure has increased, mass transit, especially for low-income Nigerians, remains a major challenge. Many without private vehicles continue to rely on limited and costly transport options.
I'm on the road that links to Abuja Airport to the city center, and where I'm currently standing is the Lugbe Airport Road. This is what we see every working month. Plenty of passengers waiting for fewer buses to convey them into town. 2 months into office, President Bola Tinubu promised Nigerians 3,000 CNG buses for March parties. But the big question Nigerians are asking is, where are these buses?
The government can do better. I wasn't even expecting any courses at that time when he was with campaign, because most of the time when people say, when people are with KPMG, want to make promises they can't keep at the NAPT. So I feel like they should stick to what they can do, other than making promises that cannot work.
To ease traffic during the festive period, the federal government recently opened a completed section of the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway to motorists. While road users welcome the move, the project continues to attract criticism over its cost and transparency.
Is road construction good? Yes. Is massive and vision-like kind of project like that good? Yes. Is it our priority at the moment? I don't think so. That's the big question.
Attention has also turned to the Abuja-Kano Highway, a key economic corridor that has suffered repeated delays. The government has, however, renewed assurance on the completion of the project. On rail infrastructure, the federal government says work has resumed on the inherited Kano-Maradi rail project, with completion projected for 2026.
We are going to ride on the train from Port Harcourt to Aba, and from today, the passenger train will commence. By the grace of God Almighty, from Aba, we are going to proceed to Enugu, and from Port Harcourt to an airport and Port Harcourt port, so that we'll be able to put freight service in the corridor.
Authorities have also earmarked about $3 billion for a long-neglected Eastern Rail line. Access to clean water remains another concern. The 2021 WASH NOM survey shows only 67% of Nigerians have basic drinking water, while just 32% have improved sources within their home. Projects such as the Greater Abuja Water Project and the FCT Satellite Towers Water Scheme are ongoing, but experts stress the need for functionality, not just construction.
I'm yet to see a government policy that is designed and wanting to be achieved right from the grassroots level upward, right? What you find is probably maybe a World Bank intervention that would target rural areas, and when the project is off, that is it.
Meanwhile, the administration's renewed Hope Housing project has commenced in Abuja, Kaduna, and Akwa Ibom states. The government says the scheme is aimed at reducing Nigeria's housing deficit. Beyond construction, concerns have emerged over project management. In August, indigenous contractors protested at the Federal Ministry of Finance, alleging delays in payments for completed jobs. The protest revived complaints about unequal treatment between foreign and local contractors.
Most of those projects is being funded singularly annually by indigenous contractors, but has not been paid to date, which is economic sabotage. banditry against contractors.
As the Tinubu administration pushes ahead with road, rail, housing and water projects, Nigerians say delivery, not announcement, will be the true measure of success. In Abuja, for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
Joining us is Head of Energy Infrastructure, KPMG West Africa, Erabor Okogun. He joins me now to examine Nigeria's infrastructure development in the outgoing year. And we also have News Central correspondent Joshua Imaraye to give us a breakdown of the report which he filed and packaged. You're welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Very good evening. Thanks for having me.
All right, Joshua, so we'll start off with you. What has been the response from Nigerians on infrastructural development around them? Are there any specific ones they have said have developed around them and benefited them in any kind of way?
Of course. Nigerians, particularly those who are at the bottom of the ladder, are actually seeing progress, particularly in the road infrastructure. Road infrastructure, maintenance, innovation, reconstruction. The government has poured in resources, a great amount, huge amount of resources in that area, and it's quite noticeable, particularly around areas of Abuja. The government has invested quite a huge amount, even in the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway. That too is a huge investment that the government has put in place. But one thing Nigerians are saying is, beyond this road infrastructure, beyond this big, huge, gigantic budget for this big, luxurious spending, what affects Nigerians mostly is mass transit, particularly. Of course, you know that there was a time Nigerians had access to mass transit, the red Abuja bus, the red long Abuja bus. Those initiatives have gone in extinct, particularly in states too. They suffer the same predicament. So this is what Nigerians are saying. Mass transit to go along with the good road infrastructure that has been put in place.
All right. Now, which ones have Nigerians specifically complained about? We've talked about mass transit, but in your report, there was the Abuja Greater Water Project, which has pretty much been lagging for a while. Are there any specific areas that Nigerians are touching on when it comes to, other sectors, especially like healthcare and power?
Yes, the federal government just late this year made huge amount of investment, particularly in primary healthcare development. The government poured in a good amount. Nigerians, aside the introduction of the banding system in power, Nigerians have seen a huge increase in power supply. But affordability of power seems to be the problem this time, because Nigerians who are more of the business kind, those who run small businesses, particularly the printing, those who run small-scale businesses, the printing, those who sell soft drinks and the likes. Power seems to be kind of expensive for these individuals. Of course, the government said that they suspended what seems to be like a subsidy in power. But what we are hearing is that this subsidy has been sustained. But what they are saying is, can power be reduced? The amount we use to purchase power can it be reduced, considering the amount we earn now and considering what is the lowest of all any rates for income earners in Nigeria currently. So that is what they're saying.
All right, thank you very much, Joshua. Let's come to our guest, Erabor Okogun. Now, how would you rate the overall progress of infrastructure development under President Tinubu? It's been 2 years into his administration. How would you say he has performed in delivering what he said he would?
Thanks a lot. As you know, there are certain challenges with public expenditure. And one of the things that I think the government did was to have a constitutional amendment, for example, in the power space, and then removal of subsidies. So the first year was essentially around policy, and also trying to get revenues up. So benchmarking of crude oil prices and crude oil production was of a certain volume. and there were challenges in meeting that. And then there was also the budget, budget expenditure, budget coverage. And when you look at our budget, you will find out about 70% of thereabout is recurring, and also to pay debts. And so it's only, say, 20-30% that's for capital expenditure. And so given that sort of context, it's very difficult for government in the first year to have done any sort of significant infrastructure. And when I say infrastructure, I mean hard and social infrastructure, so hard infrastructure like railroads, airports, to some extent, power, and then social infrastructure like healthcare. But I think in the following, say, 2024, there were certain gains, certain infrastructure projects that came on stream. I think on the power sector, you would see that things Zungeru, the 700 megawatts power plant came on stream, and that's operational right now. So I would say that there's not been a lot given the demands of Nigerians. There's not been a lot of infrastructure being built given the challenges that I spoke about, but there's been a lot of progress in terms of policy, certain policy direction, and sort of putting the house in order, constitutional amendments and that sort of thing, which I believe will create a great platform for infrastructure going into the new year.
All right, so Nigeria has had a long-standing issue with infrastructural deficit, and now we have President Tinubu with very ambitious targets in several areas of transport, power, road, and so many different things. Now, how realistic do you think these targets are, especially considering Nigeria's fiscal constraints?
I think that having the government to drive infrastructure in its entirety is sometimes considered a fallacy. And why do I say that? If you look at our budget, I think the budget for 2026, the budget of 2024 was about 24 trillion. This year, I think it's about in the 50s. If you convert that in dollar terms, in terms of how much that is in dollar terms, it's compared to the infrastructure gap, it's about, say, $7 billion, right? And if you do a 30% in terms of capital expenditure and recurrent, that's about $11 billion that's available for capital infrastructure, capital expenditure and infrastructure. The deficit for Nigeria is about $70 billion. You're talking about 200 million Nigerians, and with an average population of about 20 years, and those in the working population between about 18 years to 65, maybe about 80 million people, right? And when you look at our overall infrastructure index, we're about 24, in Africa. And for ICT, I think about 20, we're ranked 25. For transport, we're about 28, lower than Ghana, South Africa, and Egypt. And so the quantum of capital that is required is beyond the budget. The budget is circles on a yearly basis. Just designing infrastructure alone, doing the environmental and social impact assessments, doing the procurement can take a year. So the government's budgetary circle is not conducive for infrastructure. The government is great at policy, is great at making certain investments, perhaps on a PPP basis. But if Nigerians are looking at the government as the only entity to fund infrastructure, it's unlikely to happen. And so the best I think that the government can do is to invest in for instance, the Nigerian Sovereign Wealth Fund, and certain entities like MOFI, where a seed capital of say $1 billion, $2 billion can crowd in multiples of financing, 10x in some regards. And then some projects that are priority. For instance, we heard about the $1 billion investment in a Papa Port. Some of those investments can be done. And so the prioritization of government expenditure is critical, and the alignment of government policy to attract private capital is even more important in order to bridge the infrastructure gap.
All right, that was News Central correspondent Joshua Imarayan, head of energy infrastructure, KPMG West Africa, Erabor Okogun, taking a look at Nigeria's infrastructural development so far since President Tinubu took seat. Thank you very much, gentlemen.